We're here together, kind of gathered in this space. I feel really grateful. I mentioned yesterday during the opening, like we had a lot of people, but I mentioned that I feel really lucky to have the opportunity to just like look at all this amazing work and then choose, some of it to experience in person. So, I'm really grateful that all the artists kind of trusted me with bringing their artwork together in this space. And that the center here has done an amazing job, and Annie has done an amazing job just like placing all of this work so that it shines and it looks as beautiful as it does here in the gallery. Brian and the board of MCAA have just like really made me feel welcome and have organized everything to just like make it easy as possible on me to just like come in and work and meet. Work with the center, meet all the artists, and it's been just like an extreme pleasure. I will say that, I spent a lot of time looking at all of these works on my computer, basically. So, not on my phone, but like on a larger screen. So they were still like maybe, a little smaller than paper size, but I became really familiar with them. When I first walked into the space, I believe it was Friday morning, I was just like overwhelmed by, there's nothing like experiencing artwork firsthand and being in the presence of like the physical object and getting to really walk around it, and you don't have the flatness of the screen. So I was just like overwhelmed by the quality, the craft of all of this, and just like the radiant energy that all of these objects have. So it's pretty phenomenal to be in this space. I am going to talk a lot, but we have like a nice grouping of people here. So if you have questions, I'm happy to like engage those questions. I'll talk about a few different pieces, and we'll move around a little bit from this gallery to the next. But if there's specific like works that people are interested in terms of just like, I'm not the artist, so I can't tell you like the full concept behind everything, but I can tell you why I gravitated towards a specific work and why it's, I thought it should be included in this exhibition. Cool? Great? We feel good? Awesome. All right. I love it. So I guess since I'm standing here, and I'm just I'll scoot back, but I'll come back in. Margot's work, I recognize everybody, like, if I meet an artist and you tell me, like, what work you made, I will remember that work. It's harder for me to remember names at this point, right? Like, but I resonate with the objects themselves. So when I first saw Margot's work and these, like, glazed painted, glazed paintings, basically, there's a whole, like, the reason that I wanted to include them in the show is there's a whole, like, universe inside of each of those, like, glazed circles. So for me, what I gravitated towards was, a love for material. I've been working in clay for over 18 years now. So, it takes me back to my very early intro ceramics classes where I'm learning the chemistry of, like, I'll use this frog green and this like celadon, and then you kind of like mix them and then they react differently and they don't work and they do some weird stuff, to now 18 years later I know a little bit more about like the craft of this material that I've been working with. So to see somebody like Margot who's utilizing glaze and just composition in such a beautiful way, like I wanted to make sure that work was seen. I'm a figurative sculptor, as Annie mentioned. I do like very ornamental type of figurative work. So I'm drawn to that, but I'm also drawn to the things that I don't do, and especially the things that I can't do like very well, right? And for me, my glazing is kind of paint by numbers. So when I see somebody that is utilizing glaze in a more loose and abstracted way, like I like really gravitate towards that. Okay, let's move over to Kurt over here. And I won't talk about like every single piece, but I will, I'll touch on a few. And again, if you have specific questions, I don't know, we'll ask. So I awarded, and if you need me to like slow down or just keep going, cool, okay. We're there'll be some camera movement for everybody. So to talk about Kurt Lacrosse piece here. So again, I'm a figurative sculptor. I've been drawn to figurative sculpture since I started ceramics, right? Like some of my heroes have become friends. So like Tip Tolan, who's an amazing clay artist, has hyper-realistic clay artist, is a good friend. Some of my other heroes I never got to meet. Robert Arneson, kind of humorist figure sculptor, passed away before I had the opportunity to meet him. Viola Frey, another like West Coast like amazing figurative artist, again passed away before I had the chance to meet them. And I would say like so I've been drawn to like figurative sculpture since my baby ceramic years, right? Since my intro class. The very first sculpture that I made was a self-portrait that looked nothing like me, but it was my attempt at a self-portrait, right? So to see somebody like Kurt just like bring so much emotion, create this like beautiful surface, this like larger than life feeling. There's, I can get lost in this sculpture. I can really kind of like follow every single little vein in the head and the coloring and the rendering. And, I feel like we can have a conversation. I feel like Kurt is one of those artists that, I've seen the work. I've seen a lot of smaller scale work, but to experience this, it really just like has a power and a presence, and it really just like holds me again. And this is my own relationship because of my history with ceramic figurative work. Kurt, I awarded the Best in Sculpture prize to. And again, any other juror would be a completely different selection, but he touched on all my like sensibilities, right? He just like hit all my buttons, which is pretty wonderful. And it's a beautiful piece. And again, the more you explore like the puckering of the chin and just like the subtleties and textures, and thinking about clay and I think Kurt is like painting all his surface, right? So it's non-fired surface treatment. And even though I don't do that now, that's something that when I was in school, I was like, I'm all about whatever you need to do to get your piece to look the way that it needs to be. And I know there's some like, ceramics is its own material and everything needs to go into a kiln. And I'm not a believer in that. I'm a believer in like, especially in sculptural work, like you do what you need to do to like present your sculpture in the best way. And I think Kurt did an amazing, amazing job. And not the complete switch from that, but if we move like right next to this Jessica Edgar piece, like the composition of this is also just like extremely beautiful. I'm a sucker for like a little glitz every now and then, right? So if there's some shiny bits to it, it's like there's something again that I think just draws us into a little bit of reflection. And I do that in my work with a little bit of like glossy glaze here and there. But this is something that's completely out of my wheelhouse. Exactly. Like it's not something that I wouldn't even know how to approach making for myself. With Kurt's work, I realize the emotion. I can look at a figure and think about like how I would approach that. With something like this, I don't know what goes into the mind of this composition, but I know that I'm attracted to it, right? I'm attracted to the pedestal and the rhinestones and just this like balance of it's light, but it's heavy at the same time. So it has this kind of like almost ascending quality to it, which is really beautiful. So I thought this piece, needed to be in the exhibition as well. And I've built a relationship with like every one of the pieces in here. I can spend a lot of time just like pointing out like why I gravitated towards some things and not others. I do realize that there's probably the majority of the work in this exhibition that I juried is sculptural. There's probably 10%, 15% that's utilitarian. And there's some, maybe another like 10% that may be utilitarian, but I don't know if you would use it, right? So, yeah. Does anybody have any questions?
I do.
Yeah.
About this piece,
Yeah.
you said it had not been fired. It was never bisqueware. This is just rock clay.
Oh, no. So it has been fired, and I talked to Kurt, and it's been fired to cone 2. So he fires to just a little hotter than bisque, but then the finish is unfired. So like he'll do the painting on the surface, and it does say on the materials that it has resin. So that's probably this kind of the glossier, the kind of satin finish over the top. But it has been fired once. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions about any of these pieces?
I was wondering why that bunny has extra ears.
I am also wondering why that bunny has extra ears. So let's go look at that bunny.
Is this Jose?
This is Jose. Uh-huh. And the answer to why the bunny has extra ears is I don't know. I know Jose. I met Jose at NCICA. So I don't know if y'all have been to NCICA before or know about NCICA, but it's the National Council on the Education of Ceramic Arts. It'll be in Detroit in 26, right? Which is really exciting. It's going to be in Salt Lake City this coming year in 25, which is also exciting. So the first time I met Jose was just this past year at NCICA, and we met through the Color Network. So I'm a co-organizer of the Color Network, which is this wonderful community where we just like try and uplift artists of color and give them opportunity to find mentorship, find shows, get grants, things like that. Just kind of like bring people up. So I met Jose there. I believe Jose went to Cranbrook. Is that correct? But I had no idea what kind of work Jose made until eventually when I selected this piece, and then I was looking at I selected all the work first, and then I started to read some more like information about the artist, and then I saw Jose's photo, and I was like, oh, that's a guy, like this guy makes this type of work. And I was like so drawn to, again, the figurative quality to it. There's this what would I call it? It's monumental, right? Like it has this monumental like quality to it, even though it has a smaller statue, but it has this like presence of, I don't want to say like, okay. It's not like brutalist or Soviet, but it kind of has those like little, like those lean, so it has this like very like this presence that's like standing its ground, and for a bunny to do that, it's like I like the humor in that, and I thought again it's really well crafted and well made object. So bigger than I thought it was. Still, like I read the scale, but I thought it was gonna be slightly smaller. So like to see it even larger, it's like it's really fun. Jason's piece here, and then we'll kind of pivot to a different side of the gallery. But Jason got the trophy for established artists. So I made little trophies for 5 categories. Jason got the trophy for established artists. When I first walked into the gallery, I loved this piece. I juried it in. I liked looking at it. But when I first walked in and saw it and its physical form, it just kept like pulling me in, right? Like I was looking at the work, and this one kept like calling me back. And I kept looking inside all of these little these little ports, these windows, these portals, and there's something about like the textural quality, the construction. It seems like, I can see his touch in this. it seems difficult, which I love the engineering or like the patience, whatever it takes to like create this form. And then when I'm looking inside, I love that it's like finished on the inside too. There's like the craft of this is like phenomenal. It's like so well taken care of, and I can find different things as I like completely walk around this. I'm not gonna say that the established category was the hardest one to like choose an award for. They were all like difficult decisions, but it was definitely between several of these sculptures, and I know that I just like kept coming back to this one, and I didn't know why, but I knew that it was just a feeling that like kept drawing me back. I heard somebody refer to it as like it would make a nice like cat house too, which I thought was really funny. Like it didn't enter my mind, but I was like, oh yeah, I guess cats, birds, other animals could probably like it. But it's just such a beautiful, also kind of maybe a little grotesque of an object. And I feel like my sensibilities, and maybe this will come through, is like I love decorative, like ornamental. I like things that are a little off-putting. So it's just kind of like this push and pull, where it's like it feels kind of gross, but also like I can't stop looking at it. And then I love like storytelling. So if you're like a storyteller, that's work that I'm definitely drawn to. All right. Does anybody have questions? Let's talk about these tiles over here. So these, you may not know, but you do know. I'm a figurative sculptor, right? But you may not know I love making tiles. Like I love making tiles. I think tiles are horrible. I love making tiles, right? And the only reason I say horrible is because they're like so much work, and they take up very little amount of space. So let's say you make, I don't know how many tiles this is. I'm gonna guess there's probably like 30 tiles, 20 tiles here, and they like frame out a little space. So if you've ever tiled anything, 400 tiles will not fill like a quarter of this wall, right? So, but there's something really beautiful about them. And Ellie here won the trophy for emerging artist, and I just love this like. I love the composition. I love the repeating patterns of this composition. I know that it could like transform into many different things. So this is a 9 kind of center magnolia. What would I call it? Like insert painting. But this could grow and it could shrink. So it has this like expansion and contraction component to it that I find really lovely. And it's all based on the design. I'm a sucker for symmetry, so like having these repeating patterns too are also like really beautiful. I also, again, talking about another person that like touches all the sensibilities, like the red clay repeating patterns, and then the tile work and flowers. I guess these are all things that I like that are in my own work. So I really just like loved the way this came together. I actually don't know, and maybe Annie, like how is this hung?
Those strips.
Okay.
Yes.
It's all what?
It's Velcro command strips.
Oh, it is cool. It's beautiful. It's amazing. Because it's like I like how I like that it looks like it's floating. It's just it's great. Yeah. And just like such a beautiful. Yeah. Like each individual thing is beautiful, and then when you step back, it like continues. So yeah, awesome. Did you want to say anything about it? No? Okay.
Can we talk about this one?
Sure. Meg was here earlier today, and actually I've known Meg for a really long time. We went to the same graduate school. We didn't go at the same time, but we knew each other in Seattle. I actually didn't know that this is the type of work that Meg was doing because it's been over a decade since we've spent any time together. But I like this, again, like memento mori type of still life. This kind of like there's there's a decay, there's a life, there's this like activity that happens in this. So when I saw the image, I feel like the image was maybe a little bit larger. So this might have been like condensed, or it was similar but a slightly different composition, but all the elements were there. When the candles are lit, like the light reflecting on the porcelain. So there's this like, again, for me, a beautiful sensibility of like, you can explore these different elements. There's like some, what are those called? They're like carabiners. Thank you. There's like some slip cast carabiners and some hooks. There's some like organic sunflowers. So it's really interesting to like explore and like figure out like what some of these shapes are for me. And I think it's just like a really wonderful. It feels like a classical. It feels like a contemporary telling of a classical still life to me. So, yeah. All right, let's go to the other room. I'll talk about a few more pieces. We have Brian here, and I want to talk about Brian because I chose Brian for the award for ceramic utilitarian honorable mention. And there's something that when I first, I don't know what it was. Like, I kept going back and forth, like in the image, because I was like trying to figure out how the sake pourer and the cups kind of interacted together. And I like that it feels like a tray, right? Like it feels like you put them on.
Supposed to. Like, it totally.
Do they both go on there?
Yeah.
I like that they're like their own like little self-contained like little, it almost feels like like I'm going on a picnic and having sake in a picnic to me. And I think it's like this like the nature sensibility of your glazing and this kind of like lily pond type of like, feel.
It's all good. It's all good.
You will correct me. But I did get that sense of like these are like like there's a sense of, for me there's a sense of water in all of this, right? Like in your glazing. And I like the fact that these are like a carrying vessel, but they still like feel completely like functional. Like I will use this. Like I know that I will use this to like share and have a conversation and have like an evening discussion with somebody. So I love that component of it.
So the idea of the vessel being a coaster or a tray, this is one of the first iterations of this, and it's come a long way since that one. But having cups and teapots in my house where one sits over here and one sits in that cabinet, and I was like, I wanted to start making coasters, and I mean, it's a much longer story than what I'm going to share, but turning the coaster into the pouring vessel, this is kind of how things ended up, and wanted them to sit together as a full set, and so yeah, the idea of a tray holding it all, and now I'm trying to figure out how to make it larger so that it can be for like a party setting for, be at 6 people, and
yeah. Yeah, and and that was very apparent to me, like the fact that it was this, like it felt like a tray. It felt like something that it feels very much like a set. Maybe not a tray, but like it feels like a set. Like they go together, they live together. And what you just said made me think of like punch bowls that have like the little hooks that like you hook your cups on. There's this thing that's like it's a unit that you move around together. I don't know why I keep being like, I want to take this out of my kitchen and out into the world. Like it has that feel. Like it goes to a picnic with me. It goes on like I want to sit by a lake and drink sake.
Please do.
Yeah. How much is? Okay, great. We're gonna scoot over here because I know I saw Sean. Sean's here, so we're gonna talk about this. Garbage can, not this garbage, but this garbage can. There's humor, I think humor plays such a big part in my selection process too. Like I love, my early work, I tried to use humor to like disarm people. That makes it a nice like entry point, right? We can walk in, we can, I don't know, when you can laugh at something, you can approach it a little bit easier, and then you can start exploring things. So I like this. It feels very like, I don't know, to me it feels futuristic, sci-fi, like nature's winning, like we're destroying, like there's some, there's a little bit of guilt in this sculpture for me as a human, right? So I'm just like, what is my role within this? Especially with like these cans and, like being so present, but then all of this nature like starting to overtake it. I have no idea what that green sludge is, but it doesn't look good, right? Again, talking about that, a little bit of like repulsion that I'm like attracted to, and then the humor quality of it. So this piece is wonderful. And the image that I juried this piece in was placed, the image had this piece like outside, so there was, it was in a field of like more green grass, and it felt very natural. And here it still like completely works. It just like changes the subject matter a little bit for me. It just feels like, I'm thinking of like custodial staff that deals with so much stuff. My mother was a custodial worker, so like they deal with so much stuff, and this feels, like all the stuff that we humans do that other things have to deal with. It's heavy, right? Like, and it's and you can kind of feel the heaviness, I think. But like I mentioned, like it's very approachable because there's something kind of like there's not I don't know what the word is. Like the word that keeps coming to me is like it seems absurd. Like there's something, like the scale of some of these things but it also feels like, but it feels heavy. There's like the depth of heaviness to it that's meant to be discovered for me. I just was looking at this, what do you call these? Caution sign? Wet floor sign, caution sign? Do they have a name? And referencing, and this just came to me now, but like referencing, and this is like all Annie's placement of things, but referencing the garbage can and this, and talking about my mother, I'm like, oh my God, this is kind of like, this is the world that she worked in a school for a long time as a custodial worker. So it's like, this is kind of like where she lived, which is kind of freaky. I'm gonna just talk about this piece really briefly right behind you, Bill. So this is James Asava, and when I first saw this, I read the scale, and it just said like 6 feet, and I read it, and I read like 6 inches, and I'm like, how is that even possible? But then I realized like that can't be 6 inches. Like it looks like each individual thing might have been 6 inches, but I was like, okay, this is a 6-foot self-portrait, right? And I really loved, I wanted to include this piece because it really is about identity. And James, I believe in his title or description, talked about like his identity as an artist and trying to, just like put himself out there. And I remembered that as a young person myself, like when I was first starting in artwork, and I'd like use my image. I made a lot of self-portraiture in my figurative work, and using my image to just like say the things that I thought were important at the time. So I love these like school lunch trays and like this self-portrait, pretty like grand self-portrait image printed on these. So I really, for those simple reasons, I was like, yeah, of course James needs like to be presented. I don't know this, I've never met this person, but of course they need to be like present at this show, right? Like they're putting themselves out there. It's a beautifully constructed like composition, going back to like symmetry, like all these sensibilities, but for them to put themselves here. It's like, all right, I really love, the presence of this artwork here. All right, we'll touch on one last one. Let's talk about these tires. So, Micah Sweezy here. Also, I met Micah through a Color Network meetup, but I didn't know what kind of work they made. So when this was juried and I saw them, I just knew it was their work when I saw them yesterday at the opening. So I really, I love the composition. This to me feels like it is, it's an artwork that, like the placement here is outstanding. It could just like be in the center of this room and like it would like hold the entire room. Like there's something about the mass of these like tires, like the size of them, but also the material, and having an understanding of ceramics, just like the ability to be able to like make these and keep these and just like have them hold up. Like I love that. What do you call that? Like the craft, like the ability to just like make this work, right? These gigantic molds that created these tires. It's just like that. That's mind blowing. For me, I awarded Micah the Juror's Choice, and for me it was a couple things, like all these things that I just explained, where it's like I love the craft of like making these forms, and they look beautiful and they look like they're made out of ceramics, because you can see some mold lines. It's not like completely clean. There's like, they feel like a porcelain object. They also talk, I don't know a lot about Michigan, but I know that there's cars here. So I like that this kind of speaks for me to like the history of this place, and it's very relevant like at this specific like moment in time that we're at in this location. So I love that quality about it. The fact that there's only 3 tires, I'm like, did one break, or is there like a commentary on imbalance? Is there something missing? Is there like more to come? The title white gold plays into it too, where it's like, well, is this like an economical thing where it's like the industry has created opportunity? So there's a lot of questions in this object for me, and then just like the beautiful like composition with that little bit of red that sticks out. Like there's just that pop of color. I'm wondering if there's like a deeper meaning between like that red. I don't know, but just visually too, it just like grounds everything. Yeah, thanks for listening to my thoughts on some of these pieces. Again, I could go on for all of them, but that would be a really long day for all of us. So thanks, y'all. Yeah.